Hello once again. So I'd like to officially start today's session. I hope most of you are now a bit conversant with Photoshop. You know the tools, how to arrange your workspace. For now, it might your posters might not be as the way you'd want them to be, but with practice, you'll soon be creating amazing posters. So try to practice as much as possible. You try recreating some posters that you see on Pinterest, on the other sites like Behance. So today, we'll be starting a new software that is Illustrator. So when we started, we said Photoshop is used for mainly posters and images, and Illustrator, it's mostly used for vector graphics. So vector graphics are like logos, icons, sometimes typography, and that's what we'll be making from now henceforth. I'd like to welcome Rachel. She'll be taking us through the session today, and I hope you are very much ready.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for the brief introduction. Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome to today's session. Now, first, I would like to congratulate you for keeping up, and now we are starting Illustrator. And Illustrator, to be honest, it's easier than Photoshop. Many people think that Illustrator is harder, but it's actually easier than Photoshop. And you're actually going to see why a bit much easier. Welcome to Illustrator. It is an app or rather a software that enables you to create vectorized images. Just as Rachel was explaining before, it enables you to do vector graphics. So you might be wondering, what are vector graphics? What are they and how do we create them? And what's the difference between Illustrator and Photoshop? So I'll make it very simple for you. The first thing is that Illustrator is where logos are made, or rather, it is where illustrations they are made. Maybe I can show you an example of an illustration so that you can understand. There is a difference between an illustration and an image. So these are illustrations. It is different from an image, or rather, it is different from an image that you take with photography or something. An illustration is rather a vectorized image. So we are going to learn how to create all of this using Illustrator, and why we don't use Photoshop to make logos, or why we don't use Photoshop to make illustrations, and why Illustrator is good for the job. So one of the things I would like to inform you is that Illustrator works with vectors. So you might be wondering what a vector is. A vector it's the mathematical formula for creating illustrations, but it doesn't have to be very mathematical for you to say that you're good in Illustrator. Photoshop is well known to be using pixels, and we say that pixels, it is the smallest box of a screen. It is like meters, the way you measure your measurements or your grid or the quality of your design in Photoshop is using pixels. In Illustrator, we design the quality of your design using vectors. So a vector is one of the ways you transform an illustrator into a shape, because if you look clearly at this shape, it's, or rather this illustration, it is a shape. Okay, you can see that this is a circle, and then this is an arced line, and then this is a particular, domed or semicircle shape. And all of this, they're created using Illustrator. So I'm going to create a new file so that I can show you how to create a vector image and make sure that it is high quality. We're going to name this project 6. And the width, I'm going to put 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels. Now, I want you to notice something else. The color mode has changed to CYMK, not RGB anymore, because Illustrator is common for making designs that are supposed to be printed. And this is another difference between Illustrator and Photoshop. Photoshop is used to make many on-screen designs, and Illustrator is used to make printable designs. There is a way that if you want to print your poster, maybe you're creating a billboard or a banner and you need to print your poster, you have to create it through Photoshop, and you have to link it or chain it to Illustrator and change its dimensions right here. That is why, even though I'm using pixels, it will reach a time we have to use centimeters and meters to do our work, because this is where you make banners, you make posters, not posters, but rather billboards, and all of those huge printable matters, and one of them is a logo. So we are going to be using the CYMK color mode, and then create. You can see that the interface, it kind of looks the same with the one for Photoshop, but it's a little bit different. We still have the canvas right here, the white space, which we call the canvas. And then at the top, we have the menu bar, which consists of file, edit, objects, and many other tools that are necessary for you. At the left, we have the toolbars, where you have tools for you creating, and we're going to have a look at them later. And then at the right side, we have the properties panel, the layers panel, and the library, which is not necessary. So you can actually close that tab, and then you can remain with properties and layers. So I want to show you one of the ways that Illustrator can help you transform anything into a shape. So a shape has a path, and a path is what makes a design a vector, or rather, it is what makes it vectorized. For instance, when you're creating a logo and it is a word logo, those logos that you see, for example, Amazon, it's not just a word. Those are shapes. Okay, those are shapes. So I want to show you a very simple example. I start off for you to understand what Illustrator does and how it can transform anything into a shape. So a shape is anything that has a path, and a path is what states that this design, it is vectorized. So we are going to write something. At the toolbar, we have the tools right here. We're not going to be using all of them at the moment, so I will show you the most important ones. And the first one is the selection tool, and we have the second direct selection tool. We have the pen tool, and we're going to use a lot of this pen tool later. We have the rectangle tool, and we have many other tools right here. We're going to learn them slowly by slowly. For today, we're going to start with the text tool. So I'm going to click on the text tool and then come right here. So I can see that my text is very thin. Now this is also another difference with Illustrator. Instead of going back to the properties panel and everything, it can give you a small property bar right here. So I can adjust it. Let me put Poppins font. Let me make it a bit bold, and let me increase the size to maybe 60, 70. Yes, that is good. But you can hide this one. You can say hide bar if you don't want to see it. So I'm going to write something like Amazon. So what you see, it is a letter, a text, a word. And this one is not a shape, but there is a way you can transform it into becoming a shape. So what you're going to do is highlight it. You go to objects, and then you say path. Path. Let us use the selection tool. path. If the path is still graying out, because the part where it's supposed to say outline, stroke, or join, it is grayed out. So the next best option is to come to shape and then say convert to shape. Let us try it again. Shape. But now there is a problem with my Illustrator because it says that my shape cannot be converted. We're going to come back to this once again. Let us use another example of a shape. So I'm going to create a rectangle right here. Now, I hope you remember when I was teaching you in Photoshop that there is a difference between a fill and a stroke. In a stroke, it is the path that surrounds a shape or rather an image. Okay, but my rectangle does not have a stroke. Let us see, the appearance says it is a fill, but it does not have a stroke. Let us add a stroke. Let us change its color to maybe pink. Yes. So this is the stroke, but the stroke it is not a shape. Okay. What is the shape here? It is the rectangle itself. But there is a way you can separate this stroke and this rectangle itself to make it an individual shape. So what you're going to do as you have selected, you go back to objects, you say path, and then you say outline stroke. You see, I don't know if you can see, but it has been outlined. Yes. As you can see, my object, which is the rectangle, which has a stroke, now I have made the stroke to be a shape of itself. And as you can see, it's saying that it's a path right here and right here. So anything which is a path, it means it is a shape of its own and it can become a vector image. Can you see what I've just done? So I have created the stroke in itself to be a shape of itself. I have separated it from the rectangle because it is a path, or rather because it is now a vector image on its own. And this is one of the ways that you can create shapes. So I would like you to open up your illustrators and do this small example and create a new file, draw your rectangle, add a stroke, make it visible, go to objects, and then path, and then you're going to say outline stroke so that we can have the stroke in itself to be a shape. So do that, and then once you're done, you can say you're done so that we can proceed. Faith says my cursor was not moving during the illustration of how I created the pink stroke path. Faith, do you mean that you did not see me creating the pink stroke, or what do you mean? Pardon me, I cannot understand you well. The rest you can be doing the exercise and then we can proceed. Oh, okay. This is how I created the pink stroke. I'm going to create another shape. I drew a shape, a rectangle shape. Let me make it black. Right here at the layers panel, properties panel, The fill of my new rectangle is pink, so I will change it to black. And then I want the rectangle to have a stroke around it. But right now the stroke, it says it does not have any stroke. Right here, I will put a number, or you see this up and down tools. I'm going to say add. Press it until maybe 20 parts. And then you have my stroke. Okay, that is how I've created my stroke. So to separate my stroke from my rectangle, I will go to objects, path, and then outline stroke. And if I zoom in, you can see now my stroke. Before it looked like this, okay? It just had this path and it was connected to the rectangle itself. But now I want the stroke to be a shape of its own. So I go to objects, path, and then outline stroke. Now you can see there is another path right here and right here. Okay, so I'll take my selection tool and then I'll move my stroke around. Let me zoom out. Olin says you have outlined the path, but you're finding it difficult to move the stroke. Okay, use the direct selection tool. The first tool is called right here. It's called the selection tool. It helps you to select entire objects. And then the second one is called the direct selection tool. So you have to click it, click on the stroke, and then you will be able to move it. Today we're doing very simple stuff in Illustrator, just playing around with shapes and creating new shapes. So the next thing we're going to do is to combine shapes. What we have just done here is to separate shapes. So now I want us to combine shapes. So I will just go ahead and delete this and go to my shape tool and draw a shape, a rectangle. Let me draw another shape. Let me use the ellipse tool and draw a circle. I will attach my circle with it. Maybe even make it color yellow. And then I'll use another shape, maybe the star shape, and then draw it right here. No, other one. Yes. I will change the fill to black. Let me push it there. So I've just selected very random shapes and I want to combine them. So that's not grouping them. There is a difference between grouping different shapes and combining different shapes. So when you're combining them, you're making them into one entire shape. Because right now, even if I group them, they have different parts outlining that this is a shape of its own, this is a shape of its own, and this is a shape of its own. That is grouping them. But I don't want to group them. I want to combine them into one entire shape. So you're going to go to the toolbar and you will find a very good tool. It's called the shape builder tool. So a shape builder tool allows you to create new shapes by combining already existing shapes and by removing other parts of the shapes that you already have. And this is a very important tool. We're going to use it a lot in our coming project. So I will select the shape builder tool. Okay. Before I select the shape builder, I have to group them like that. Once you have grouped them, you come to the shape builder tool and then you will find the cursor. Let me zoom in. When I take my cursor to one of those shapes, can you see what it's doing? Yes, I hope you can see that it's separating them into different portions. So what you do to combine all of this into one shape, let us assume that I only want this part of the star, okay? And I want another small part of the circle. You're going to right click and then draw a line through all of them. And now you have a whole shape for yourself. Let me redo that again. I will right click, left click, and then I will draw a line throughout the entire shapes that I want to make them. Now I have combined them into one entire shape. And that is how you make a shape. Now you can adjust them how you want. You can come to fill and say you want it to be yellow. Say you want it to be blue. Now this is one entire shape. Okay, and that is how you use the shape builder tool. Also, you can remove other parts of the shape that you don't want. So I'll undo what I've just done. Let me put this one maybe there. Let me draw another circle. Another circle, maybe somewhere there. Let me move it. Yes, somewhere there. Let me change its color to something like green. Let me make a selection. And then I pick the shape builder tool. Now, in this specific shape that I've selected, there are some parts I don't want them. Okay, let me say I don't want this particular shape, this semicircle right here. So instead of the way my cursor has a plus, I will make it to be a minus by clicking Alt. Okay, so when I click Alt, you can see it is a minus, and then I click on it and I click on the circle. Now I have removed parts of that shape, and then I can combine the rest into like that. Sorry, I was clicking Alt. Let me combine these two and all of them. You see, now I have been able, the circle that was here, I have used it to cut out a section of my square that I didn't really want it, just by clicking on the Alt tool and then you click on it. And then it's going to delete the parts that you don't want, just like that. Now you have a semicircle. So that's how you use the shape builder tool to create shapes of your own. It's very easy, and with more practice, you'll be able to create more defined shapes. In the next class, we are going to create a penguin using shapes. So logos, I usually hear people say that logos, they're very hard to design. That is not true. Logos, they're very, very simple to design. And once you can master the art of creating logos, it will also be very easy for you to even design posters and other elements in Photoshop. Now, logos, people say logos, they're hard because it also takes creativity to create the logo. Designing the logo itself is the easiest part. Coming up with the creativity to design that logo is what people call the hardest part, or rather, that's what make people think that it's hard. But once you can tune your mind to be creative enough, it's going to be a very easy process for you. And once again, Illustrator helps you to make very, very high quality images using vectors or rather picturized images. It's like transforming a shape into a picture, and it's going to be very important for you as a graphic designer to understand Illustrator, and it's going to help you a lot, especially in making logos and changing the dimensions of posters so that you can use them in billboards, in banners, and many other places to use. So that is it for today's class. We have done a very simple practice. I will give assignments of whatever these two practices we have just done, transforming the stroke into a shape of its own, and then creating other shapes, combining other shapes into becoming one specific shape. In the meantime, you can also go to YouTube, check out more about the shape builder tool, check out more about vectorizing images in Illustrator and creating paths and outlining strokes and what we can do with outlined strokes. So I will reach out for today. Thank you so much for having me. Always remember to save your files, save them. You don't want to lose them. And I will reach there for today. Thank you so much for your cooperation. If you have any questions, you can ask. In the meantime, I hand it back to Rachel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for the amazing session today. I believe most of us have learned something new about Illustrator and how you can come up with new vector or new graphics. So I'd like to end the session here at this point, unless there is anyone who has a question. If there is none, feel free to leave the call. Have a good evening. Have a nice weekend. I'll see you during the next class, which will be on Thursday next week. Bye bye.